Chris Benoit Part 2. In May 2003, Nancy had filed for divorce alleging domestic abuse. She ended up withdrawing this filing 3 months later. Sources report Chris's emotional downfall spiraled when he lost his best friend, Latino Heat Eddie Guerrero, on November 13, 2005. Eddie's nephew, Chavo Guerrero, was the one that found him unconscious in his hotel room. An autopsy revealed Eddie's cause of death was a heart attack due to heart disease aggravated by the use of steroids, narcotics, and alcohol. In a terrible twist of fate, around 3:30 on June 23, 2007, Chavo Guerrero received a voicemail from Chris. In that voicemail, he explains Nancy and Daniel had food poisoning and he would be late for that night's house show in Texas. My WWE fanatic husband so kindly, enthusiastically, and in great detail explained to me that a house show meant a wrestling match that was not televised. After hearing the voicemail, Chavo called Chris back and explained that Chris sounded tired and groggy. After this phone call, Chavo grew concerned for Chris and called him back with no answer from Chris. At 3:44 that same day, Chris calls Chavo back. Chavo tells Chris, "All right, man, if you need to talk, I'm here for you." And Chris ended the call with saying, "Chavo, I love you." In a 2014 podcast with another WWE star, Chris Jericho, Chavo recalls something was off in that last call with Chris Benoit, especially when he ended it with saying, "I love you." In the days leading up to the murder-suicide, a search of the quickest and easiest way to break a neck was found on Chris's computer, as well as a search for the biblical story of Elijah, one that tells a story about a man who was able to bring back a widow's son from the dead. Chris sent text messages from his cell phone as well as Nancy's cell phone that read, "The dogs are in the enclosed pool area. Garage side door is open. My physical address is 130 Green Meadow Lane, Fayetteville, Georgia, 30215. Chris's father, Michael Benoit, told the Atlanta Journal that Martina, Chris's ex-wife, had found a suicide note in the form of an undated written hand note inside of a Bible page that read, "I'm preparing to leave this earth." This family annihilator went on a 3-day spree. Chris first gagged and tied his wife before strangling her. The next morning, he sedated his son with Xanax before suffocating him to death. Daniel was found dead in his room, the same room where the walls were embellished with pictures and accolades of the man he admired so much. The previously mentioned odd phone calls with Chris led a WWE security guard and retired NYPD detective to call the police and requested a welfare check be performed. Upon arrival, the cops asked a neighbor to contain 2 large German Shepherd guard dogs inside of the Benoit home. This neighbor, this poor woman, does what she was told and ends up finding the bodies. In horror, she runs out of the home to find that police had gone inside. Worried about the safety of the police officers, she calls 911. As a former paralegal who's listened to thousands of 911 calls, I have to admit that this 911 call was one of the most crude. The 911's operator's demeanor was impolite, and you can hear annoyance in her tone. The operator tells the neighbor the cops are fine and hangs up on her. The fans of the house match Chris missed chanted, "We want Benoit," upon hearing about his replacement. The night the WWE received news about the deaths of Chris, Nancy, and Daniel, they dedicated a 3-hour broadcast in honor of Chris and his legacy. After receiving the truth about the murders, the WWE apologized and never spoke his name again. Toys R Us eliminated Chris Benoit's action figures from their shelves. The WWE purged his merchandise from their stores and website. The WWE has since banned wrestlers from using a chair to smack opponents on the head. Dr. Phil Aston, who prescribed Chris Benoit steroids and injections, testosterone injections, was given a 10-month sentence for federal DEA charges. Roid rage was to blame shortly after the news. Studies show that the use of steroids, which was confirmed Chris was using, can cause aggressive behavior, paranoia, edginess, impatience, and mood swings. The WWE was quick to defend Chris, saying that according to their records, Chris had tested negative for steroids on April 10, 2007. Neurosurgeon Dr. Julian Bales opined that Benoit's brain was so severely damaged that it resembled the brain of an 85-year-old Alzheimer's patient. Dr. Bales had also studied the brains of NFL players such as Andre Waters and Terry Long, whom also committed suicide. Additionally, Dr. Bales expressed, "There is a constant theme in the failure of their personal lives, their business lives, depression, and then ultimately suicide." Physician, forensic pathologist, and neuropathologist Dr. Bennett Omalu suggested Chris's brain was so severely damaged he would have not been alive within 6 months. Dr. Chris Nowinski, a neuroscientist, former wrestler, and former Harvard football player, confirmed that tests performed on Chris's brain were positive for CTE. None of the wrestlers who publicly praised Chris shortly after receiving news of his death showed up to his funeral. Thank you so much for coming down the rabbit hole where I currently live. As always, I accept and respect your opinions. If you'd like a copy of my notes on this case, feel free to email yayareahousewife@gmail.com. Let me know what case you'd like me to cover next. I'll see you chismosas y chismosos in the next video. Thank you. Bye.